Well, AEW Revolution proved to be the end cap to what was a kick-ass month of February for All Elite Wrestling. Let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of All Elite Review. I apologize that this is coming way late, but I've been procrastinating quite a bit, admittedly. Just haven't been in the mood to do it, but we're going to do it right now, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it, get this over with. So the pre-show match to AEW Revolution was number 2 SCU taking on number 3 Dark Order. Highlights of this match. Both sides start immediately attacking each other. Kazarian hits his 3-hit combo on Stu Grayson and a German suplex on him. Sky hits a drop kick on Evil Uno. Kazarian hit a springboard leg drop on Stu Grayson for a 2 count. Stu powers Kaz back into their corner. Kazarian with a scissors kick on Uno. Stu blocks a leaping Frankensteiner, and Uno sends Kazarian into the ring post. Dark Corner do a corner splash big boot combo on Kazarian for a 2 count. Uno hits inverted shoulder thrusts on Kazarian, and then Stu with a penalty kick for a 2 count. And then Stu Grayson hits a flying lariat on Kazarian for a 2 count. Scorpio Sky gets the hot tag, comes in with a diving back elbow, a Manhattan drop, a drop kick, and a sunset flip, all for a 2 count. Sky with a hesitation drop kick on Uno for a 2 count. Kazarian hits a DDT on Stu Grayson for a 2 count, and then Stu hits a Pele kick on both members of SCU, and then the Dark Order do their get over here on SCU for a 2 count. Dark Order hit an electric chair into a sit-out powerbomb on Scorpio Sky for a 2 count, which looked really good. Stu Grayson with a Superman punch on Scorpio Sky. SCU does like a monkey flip lariat combo, where Sky monkey flips Kazarian, and he flips over and he does like a double lariat on both members of the Dark Order. And as Sky was going for, I forget if it was a Dragon Sleeper or if he was going for a cover, but Uno hits a blind side lariat on Scorpio Sky, which allows Stu Grayson to get the 3 count for the win. Afterwards, Dark Order attack SCU, but then Colt Cabana comes out and tries to help out. Of course, Chicago native, and he's also signed with AEW now, so I think that's a pretty big acquisition by All Elite Wrestling. A long-time Ring of Honor wrestler, and very highly regarded. But then some strange music hits and someone comes out in a robe, and a lot of people are like, oh my god, it's the Exalted One, you know? But then he throws the robe off, and it's Christopher Daniels, kind of a throwback to when there were rumors going around that he should have been the higher power, or there were rumors going around that he was the higher power, you know, during, you know, the Attitude Era, that whole thing. So that's kind of a throwback to that, and he basically runs to the ring and attacks Evil Uno, and the babyfaces clear the ring. So Christopher Daniels is not the Exalted One, as it turns out. But a pretty solid pre-show match. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. So now we get into the main card itself. First match was Dustin Rhodes against Jake Hager. Of course, this has been a long simmering rivalry that dates back to when Hager, quote-unquote, broke Dustin's arm all those months ago. And this is Jake Hager's AEW in-ring debut. So here we go. Highlights of this match. Dustin and Hager go toe-to-toe right at the beginning. Hager hits a back suplex, and then both go right into the crowd to start fighting it out. Dustin starts working on Hager's arm, like smashing it onto the railing stair where the stairs were. Dustin lariats Hager back to the outside. It went back into the ring within the Dustin lariats Hager back to the outside. Hager hits a back suplex onto the apron and then a running lariat. Crowd starts chanting Jericho's bitch, because that's what Dustin started on Hager recently. Hager hits a snapmare into an arm wrench hold. And it looked like they were a bit too smashed out because you could see that Hager's lower gums were bleeding a little bit. Hager hits a spinning back elbow. Dustin hits a lariat. Hager sends Dustin into the guardrail and the ring apron. Dustin hits his kneeling uppercut and then bulldog. And then the snap power slam for a 2 count. Hager hits the snake eyes and a chop block. Dustin blocks the first attempt at the Vader bomb, but Hager hits a big power slam and then the Vader bomb for a 2 count. Hager starts hitting some running lariats, and his gut wrench power bomb only got a 2 count though. Dustin launches Hager out of the ring and into the stairs. He hits a Yoshi tonic for a 2 count. Dustin then applies the cross arm breaker. Hager rolls through into an ankle lock. Dustin was going to go for the unnatural, but the referee, which I think was Aubrey Edwards, said no, don't do that. And Hager took advantage of a referee distraction to hit a low blow on Dustin and locks in his standing triangle choke, which is actually a legit MMA move, which is what is used to get his MMA wins with. And he puts Dustin to sleep for the victory. I mean, it's nothing fancy about this one. It was just two guys just going, pound for pound, trying to rain blows on each other and that sort of thing. It was a pretty decent opening match to Revolution. Nothing too exciting though. I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. And then the next match, of course, was Sammy Guevara against Darby Allin, another grudge match. And of course, this one was a lot more high-flying and a lot crazier than the previous match. Before the match even gets started, Darby Allin hits a tope suicida before the belly rings, followed by a shotgun drop kick. Guevara hits a rider kick. Allin hits a suplex snake eyes on the railing and then jumps back in and hits a tope suicida into Sammy. Nearly missed him though. Landed hard on the ground. Sammy throws the skateboard into Darby's face and sets up 2 tables. Sammy hits his 630 splash through the table. When Darby crawled his way back into the ring, they finally started the match, and Sammy hits a running knee strike for a 2 count. Darby does a nice combo of submission moves. He starts with a gory special, turns it into a Fujiwara armbar, which then he transitions into a cattle mutilation. That was a pretty good little combo right there by Darby Allin. But then Sammy hits a double stomp onto the apron. You know how his opponent would be standing on the apron, and then Sammy jumps off and does a double stomp. Looks really painful. Darby hits the Yoshi tonic for a 2 count. Sammy hits a Sammy had Darby placed on the top rope. Darby pushed him off. Sammy leaps back up to the top rope, nearly loses his balance, but then regains control and hits a devastating looking Spanish fly. And it looked like he hurt himself a little bit on that too. Only got a 2 count though. Sammy removes top turnbuckle out of one of the corners, but of course it immediately comes back and bites him in the ass, because of course it does. When Darby does a monkey flip, sending him into the exposed turnbuckle. Darby hits his shoulder ride stunner and then the coffin drop for the 3 count and the victory. Afterwards, he tried to inflict even more punishment on Sammy, but Jake Hager, of course, comes out and pulls Sammy to safety. Yeah, pretty good match right here. I gave it 3.75 stars out of 5. And then, of course, this match. This was without a doubt the match of the night and yet another contender for match of the year. The AEW World Tag Team Championship match between the Omega Cowboys, Hangman Adam Page, and Kenny Omega against the Young Bucks. And of course, this has been a storyline that's been simmering for quite a few weeks now. and there were a lot of people that were suspecting that, you know, the Young Bucks were going to win this, and that would lead to the implosion between Kenny Omega and Adam Page. But surprisingly enough, they did not pull the trigger this time around, instead opting to let it simmer for a little while longer. Of course, they now have the luxury to do that, since they have that new contract that extends through 2023 with TNT. So they have that luxury going for them. But there is so much shit that came out of this match. And by shit, I mean a lot of stuff of note. Like, it nearly filled up 2 full pages. Like, that's how many highlights were in this freaking match. I mean, we thought that the Iron Man match was crazy, but this just absolutely took the cake. And was, without a doubt, the best match of the night. So, highlights of this match. There was some great mat wrestling between Omega and Nick Jackson. And then their tag partners tagged in, and they did some great mat wrestling too. Page spits in Matt's face, which causes Matt to go completely berserk and start like ground punching him and shit. Nick hits a spinning back kick to Page, and then the Young Bucks hit their assisted drop kick to Page, and then the Young Bucks do that Tierra's drop kick combo to Omega. So basically breaking out their greatest hits. And then the Young Bucks hit a Hangman Neckbreaker Hilo combo to Page. Matt does a skin the cat drop kick to Omega, where he basically slingshots to the ropes, hits a drop kick, and then skins the cat, flipping back into the ring. The Young Bucks hit a gutbuster somersault cutter combo to Page. But then Page hits some kidney shots to Matt, focusing on the back, because Matt has had some significant back issues in recent years and has decided not to have surgery to have it fixed, which I don't know how wise that is. But Page starts focusing on the back. Omega hits a running pendulum backbreaker on Matt for a 2 count. The Omega Cowboys hit chops to Matt. Matt with the locomotion on both members of the Omega Cowboys, even though he didn't get it the first time, but then powered through it. Gets the tag to Nick, who does like some martial arts, and then the Bulldog Lariat combo to both members of the Omega Cowboys. Nick hits a flying Frankensteiner to Omega, and then he hits a rising knee strike, penalty kick, slingshot X Factor, Asai moonsault combo to both members of the Omega Cowboys. You know, that's just typical Nick Jackson. Nick comes in, hits and locks Page in a sharpshooter, but then Omega comes in and hits a Kotaro Crusher on him to break it up. Omega and Matt tag in this time, and Omega hits a Frankensteiner to Matt. Nick with a super kick to Omega to block the Terminator Hilo dive. Only gets a 2 count though. Omega goes for the tag, but Nick pulls Page off of the apron, and then Matt hits a pile driver on Omega for a 2 count, like a vanilla pile driver, which you don't really see all that often anymore. Omega hits a sky high on Nick, gets the hot tag to Page, who hits a leaping lariat on Nick Jackson. Page hits the fallaway slam on Matt. Looked like he was going to go for the pescado, which is what he usually does after a fallaway slam, but he actually turns it into a somersault plancha on Nick, which is like, wow, okay, kind of changed that up a little bit. And then Page starts running the ropes and hits a roaring lariat on Matt to send him on. Actually, he ran at Matt. He didn't hit the burning lariat yet. That comes later. But he hits a roaring lariat to Matt to send him to the outside. Then Page hits the Arihara moonsault to both of the Young Bucks on the outside. Nearly lands on the frickin' table, but thankfully misses it. And then he rolls Nick back into the ring and hits a burning lariat, where he runs the ropes a couple times and then just absolutely plasters Nick. But then he grabs Nick, throws him into the corner, because he wants Matt Jackson in the ring, because Matt's been the one that he's had the real problem with. So they basically get in each other's face and they start trading shots with one another. Page hits a big boot to Matt, and then the Omega Cowboys hit a lariat, flying back elbow, discus forearm, launching German suplex to Matt, and Matt nearly broke his neck on that one. And then Omega basically muscles Matt up into a sit-out gut-wrench powerbomb. Only gets a 2 count though. Nick comes back in, does some martial arts to Page, and it's a super kick on Omega. And then has him in an arm wrench, jumps up to the top rope. Page pushes him off. Nick does a backflip onto the ring ramp. And then Nick comes in with a slingshot destroyer to Page. Only gets a 2 count though. The Young Bucks hit a powerbomb Shiranui combo to Page. A throwback to the Motor City Machine Guns. But only gets a 2 count. Page blocks Nick's super kick, and he sends it into Matt. Page hits a discus elbow to Nick. Page with a misdirection kick. Was going to go for a super kick, but then directs it to Matt's knee. And Excalibur called it a villainous super kick, which that's the type of move that the villain Marty Scurll uses. He does that misdirection kick, and then Page does like a little spin, and he shouts, "Chicken wing!" And that's exactly what Marty Scurll does. So he's basically a throwback to basically a call out to Marty Scurll, because those two are pretty tight. So he goes, "Chicken wing!" and he puts Matt in the chicken wing, and I gotta tell you, I was grinning ear to ear when he did that. But Matt rolls backwards, and Nick comes off the top rope to hit a 450 splash to Page. Only gets a 2 count though. Give me 1 second. The Omega Cowboys hit their Singapore roll, Shooting Star Press, moonsault combo, and then Page goes up top and grabs Nick Jackson. I believe it was Nick Jackson. It was one of the Jacksons. And he picks him up, gets ready for his avalanche fall away slam, but instead he turns it into a blockbuster suplex, which is basically a fall away slam, but he also does a moonsault with it. So that was pretty crazy. And then the Omega Cowboys hit a power bomb. Well, Page hits the power bomb, and then Omega hits a V trigger to Nick. Only gets a 2 count though. Omega hits V triggers on both of the Young Bucks. Hits Snapdragon suplexes to Nick. And then he hits a Tiger Driver 98 to Nick for a 2 count. Hits a V trigger. Looks like he's going to go for Crunch Wrath off the top rope, but then Nick counters it into an avalanche. Poison Frankensteiner. Page hits a discus elbow to Nick. And then Matt hits the Locomotion Northern Lights suplexes to Page on the ramp, going all the way back to the plastic variant of the ramp. And then the Young Bucks hit the Indie Taker on Page on the ramp, basically the stuffed Tombstone Pile Driver, which takes him out for a bit. The Young Bucks hit Super Kick Party on Omega. And then the Golden Trigger, which is basically that arm clutch knee strike that Omega did on Pac. In the Iron Man match, except that the Young Bucks did it, and that's what Kota Ibushi and Omega did when they were a tag team. It was called the Golden Trigger, but only gets a 1 count because that pissed Omega off. And then the Young Bucks hit Super Kick Party on Omega, only gets a 2 count. And then Matt starts stomping on Omega's shoulder, rips the shoulder tape off. And this is just great storytelling here, because Nick comes in saying, "You gotta calm down." And it showed the camera pan to it showed Matt's hands were shaking like this, like the emotions were really running high. And then they were gonna go for the Meltzer driver, and then Page comes in and blocks that by taking Nick and power bombing him through the table. Omega hits Matt with a rising knee strike, and then the Omega Cowboys hit their buckshot trigger finisher, basically the V trigger buckshot lariat combo on Matt. Only a 2 count though. And then they pan the camera to Page, and he had this like wide-eyed look in his face, like, what the fuck? Omega hits the V trigger on Matt, and then tries to go for the one-winged angel, but of course, because his shoulder was damaged, he couldn't quite lock it in. So what he did was he switched to where he would, because normally he would do it with his right hand. I think he does it with his left hand actually, or his left arm. But then he tried to transition it and do the driver with his right hand, but couldn't lock it in because Matt countered out of it and hits a super kick. Page tags in, And then he picks Matt up onto his shoulders in an electric chair, and everybody just came to their feet like, oh my god. You could literally hear the crowd roar when he did that. And Tony Schiavone was like, is he really gonna? And he's like, yeah, he's gonna. And Paige hits a picture-perfect one-winged angel on Matt, and that immediately caused the roof to blow off the fucking place, because the crowd was like, holy shit, you know? The crowd just erupted at that. And it was like 1, 2, and Nick came in to break it up at 2, and which completely pissed Paige off. So he sends Nick out onto the rampway, hits a buckshot lariat to him, and then Justin Roberts comes in and says 30 minutes gone by, 30 remain, and I'm like, this match has lasted 30 minutes? Certainly didn't feel like it. And then Paige turns around and hits a nasty looking buckshot lariat. Buckshot. How about that? How's that for irony? But hits a buckshot lariat on Matt and gets the 3 count and the victory. So still your tag team champions, Kenny Omega and Adam Page, the Omega Cowboys. And then they had some teases afterwards of everyone turning on one another. You had Page dropping the belt and looked like he was going to hit a buckshot on Omega, but instead he just holds the ropes open for him, and they walk up the ramp still the champions. So they still got this one a brewing for sure. And this was without a doubt the best match of the night. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. What else can I give it? You know what I mean? Unfortunately, this meant that the next match, and it didn't matter what match it was basically sent out to die, basically. Because it's like, how is anybody going to follow that? Like, seriously. So the next match was going to be the come down match, obviously. And unfortunately, it was the women's division that had to bear the brunt of that. In particular, this was the AEW Women's Championship match with Chris Statlander taking on Nyla Rose. I mean, they tried. They tried to make this match interesting, but I mean, this match was sloppy as fuck. And, you know, when you have... And the other problem is, this match basically had no build to it whatsoever. None. You know? And they could have opted to go with Nyla versus Riho in, you know, the rubber match. You know, the third and final match in this little series that they had. And considering how good the first 2 matches have been, I mean, they could have had this one on Revolution. They could have pulled out all the stops. You know what I mean? And at the very least, I mean, if it would have been Riho and Nyla, then coming after the tag team championship match, especially that one, wouldn't have been as devastating, you know, because they would have been like, oh, we got Riho and Nyla next now, and we're seeing how these two can tear it up when they're in the ring together. So, I mean, it just would have kept the train a-rolling, you know what I mean? But instead, they opted to put Riho in a tag match where she was teaming with Yuka Sakazaki against Britt Baker and Penelope Ford in a special dark episode match, and they basically had Britt Baker go over Riho by submission in that tag match. You know, which makes no fucking sense whatsoever. That irritated the fuck out of me. You know, whatever. You know, you could have had Chris Statlander in that match teaming with Yuka instead, but they decided to go with Chris Statlander versus Nyla Rose, and it was a failure. I might as well just go ahead and say it. It was a failure, because this had absolutely no build whatsoever. It was sloppy as fuck. I mean, these two I think have a lot of potential, but this match was just not good. It just wasn't. There were some things that were okay. As my Xbox does that beep noise. Highlights of this match. Both tried to outmuscle the other at the beginning when they're in that collar and elbow tie-up. Chris does a somersault splash and a standing moonsault for 2 count. Actually looked good. Nyla drives Chris into the corner. Nyla dodges Chris's tope suicida, and she just lands face first on the rampway. And then Nyla hits a spear through the ropes for a 2 count. That actually looked pretty good. But Nyla then hits a very sloppy lariat. It's like, this is like night and day difference. I mean, that spear was good, but then she hits Chris with some lariats, and they just look weak as fuck. Then Nyla hits a launching suplex into the corner. Chris hits a super kick and an enziguri. Hits a couple of tope suicidas and a missile drop kick for a 2 count. Nyla hits a northern lariat. And then goes for her flying knee strike, where she hangs her opponent over the top rope and hits a knee strike. But Chris handstands out of it and blows Nyla a kiss. Nyla tries to go for a penalty kick, but Chris counters into a schoolgirl for a 2 count. And then a buzzsaw kick and a short DDT for a 2 count. Chris goes for the Big Bang Theory, but Nyla blocks it. Hits a knee strike and then transitions into an STF. Chris hits a one-legged drop kick, bounds off the ropes, and then looks like she's going to go for like a Frankensteiner, but Nyla counters into the Beast Bomb. Only gets a 2 count though, and Nyla sold that pretty well, because she looked at the referee like, are you serious? You know. And then Nyla goes up to the top rope. Chris stops her and hits a very dangerous superplex where she was trying to gain position, but nearly breaks her leg trying to superplex Nyla off the top rope. And it looked devastating, don't get me wrong, but that was a very dangerous spot. And then Nyla goes up to the top rope yet again. Chris stops her once again. They keep trying to do this top rope Frankensteiner spot. And they were really struggling to get this sequence off. And it's just like, oh my god, they're going to fall down and Chris is going to break her neck. Thankfully that did not happen. But Nyla hits an avalanche beast bomb, which looks sloppy as hell, but gets the 3 count and the victory. So still, you know, AEW Women's Champion is Nyla Rose, which, I mean, considering the fact that this match had absolutely no build whatsoever, this match was doomed from the start, honestly. And it just seemed like these two had no chemistry in there whatsoever. I only gave this match 2 stars out of 5. It sucked. I mean, I hate to say it, but, you know, this is just going to be more ammo for the people that have been, you know, heavily criticizing the women's division for, you know, being basically the weak point of AEW right now. So, I mean, it sucks. I mean, what would really help is a long-term storyline. Because right now, when you look at my personal rankings, the division is actually kind of top-heavy right now, because you have only like 3 or 4 that have been winning a lot of matches. You have Nyla Rose, Riho, Britt Baker, and Hikaru Shida, and you could probably throw Chris Statlander and maybe Big Swole into that. But I think it's pretty obvious that the crowd is really starting to get on the side of Hikaru Shida, because she's been getting a lot of positive reactions in her matches. A couple of things I would do in the case of Hikaru Shida is that you could put her and Nyla in a storyline where, you know, over the next, you know, couple of months leading into Double or Nothing, you could put them in a game of one-upsmanship, basically, where, you know, Nyla would basically go out, you know, and do this, and then she would challenge Hikaru to match everything she's doing. You know, and they would keep building and building. Then you put like Nyla in a handicap match or some shit like that, and then Hikaru has to do the same thing. And it's like, okay, if you do this, then maybe you'll get a championship match at Double or Nothing. And then, you know, you have some kind of standoff or contract signing or whatever the fuck it is, and then you have the ultimate confrontation at Double or Nothing. I don't know if you would have Hikaru Shida win the championship at that point, but at the very, I mean, you probably could. I mean, we would have a pretty big build-up leading into Double or Nothing, but, you know, that's something I would probably consider doing. At the very least, we would have a long-term storyline in place for the women's division. Although, it looks like right now they're probably going to push Big Swole a little bit, but we'll talk about that on the next review. On Dynamite, because I have to do that one too. Yeah, on a Sunday, March 8th is the date that I'm recording this on, so it's going to be a busy day because I got to do the Dynamite review as well from this past Wednesday, and then I got to get ready for the NASCAR race at Phoenix and then do the review for that too. Busy day. So the next match was the much anticipated grudge match between Cody and MJF, which had a lot of implications as far as the rankings went too, because it was number 2 Cody against number 5 MJF. So obviously this match was a big deal. And of course it was also heavily promoted, considering the fact that they had Cody go through all of them stipulations, and all that jazz. Now the way they ended this match was actually kind of surprising to me, because I had suggested that they could have ended this match by disqualification, with MJF doing that, running low blow that he had done the previous couple of times to Cody, which would have really gotten some heat on him. So I was a little bit surprised at the ending to this one, but I mean, I think it still did the job just the same. But highlights of this match, MJF bails from the ring on multiple occasions, because of course he does. Both started exchanging shots. Cody hits his layout uppercut, and a Cody cutter, only gets 1 count though. Cody hits a full running lariat, basically a burning lariat for a 2 count. Hits a sunset flip for a 2 count. Cody picks MJF into an airplane spin and then turns it into a water wheel slam. Cody hits a tope suicida onto Wardlow after Brandy, who was at ringside, splashed some beer in his face. But MJF hits an arm breaker into the top rope, and he starts working on the arm, because of course, one of his finishers is the Fujiwara armbar he calls the Salt of the Earth. MJF hits a hammerlock gut wrench powerbomb for a 2 count, which was really interesting. And then he puts them to a wrist lock, hits a double stomp onto the arm, and then locks in the Salt of the Earth armbar, but Cody gets the rope with his mouth, because MJF was trying to keep Cody's body parts from reaching the rope. MJF takes off Cody's boot that had his injured toe, because he actually fractured his big toe in the cage match when he did the moonsault to Wardlow. Landed hard on the mat, and actually ended up injuring his toe. And MJF actually bites Cody's toe, so yeah. Cody hits the snake eyes off the turnbuckle, and then his inverted superplex, which always looks devastating. He hits a disaster kick, and at this point MJF was actually busted open at this point. He hits the 10 punch and then a snap power slam for a 2 count. MJF hits the Heat Seeker, which is basically, you know how you set up for a hanging DDT through the middle rope? Well, he does that with a pile driver variant. He calls it the Heat Seeker. They go to the outside. Brandy tries to do a crossbody onto Wardlow, who catches her. He puts her down though. Cody tries to go for a pump kick on Wardlow, but accidentally hits Arn Anderson. MJF hits a low blow and a schoolboy for a 2 count. And then MJF and Cody suplex each other over the top rope. It's like, man, that was pretty nasty. Both get back in before the 10 count. Both start trading punches. MJF hits the double cross, which is his variation of the crossroads. Only gets a 2 count. Cody battles back and hits Din's Fire, the Vertebreaker, but only gets a 2 count. And then Cody whips MJF with his weight belt, kind of a bit of a poetic justice after what MJF did to him. MJF starts, crying crocodile tears and asking for forgiveness before he spits in Cody's face. And Cody hits 2 crossroads on him. Was going for a third, but MJF hits him with a knee. And at some point, during this whole thing, MJF actually put on the Dynamite Diamond Ring, gets out of the third crossroads, and then hits like a wild haymaker punch and knocks Cody out and gets the surprise 3 count and the victory. And you could tell the look in the crowd was like, are you fucking serious? But, Cody getting the win here would not have made sense, honestly, because, again, this is the type of program that you could extend all the way to Double or Nothing. This is not the way I expected it to end, but, MJF getting the win here, it does make sense. And when you see the rankings, AEW official rankings at the beginning of the next review, which is the Dynamite in Denver, you'll see that MJF has been launched up to the number 2 spot in the men's rankings. And oh, by the way, he has not been pinned or made to submit yet in AEW. That's kind of important, But yeah, the storytelling in this match was pretty good. And of course, the emotions behind it made sense. I gave this match 4 out of 5 stars. The next match was a surprisingly hidden gem. Number 3, Pac taking on Orange Cassidy in Orange Cassidy's singles debut. And this was the point where they finally let this guy loose. Because, we've been hearing it that, he had been doing this sloth-like character pretty much since his debut in AEW. But when you let we've been hearing it that once he is given the opportunity to let loose and show what he was really capable of, it'll turn the crowd on its head. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened in this match. So the crowd starts chanting "Holy shit" right at the beginning. Orange hits a nice judo throw, which shocked the hell out of Pac. It's like, holy shit. Orange starts hitting half-assed kicks, which Pac actually started returning himself. Then he shoves Orange down. Orange hits a drop kick and kip up, of course, with his hands in his pockets. He hits an arm drag and a victory roll, but then Pac hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, sends Orange into the post, and the way Orange hit that post, it looked nasty. Pac hits a shotgun drop kick and a super kick, and then a sit-out powerbomb for a 2 count. He hits an avalanche brainbuster, which looked nasty as fuck. Picks Orange up at 2, though. Wasn't done yet. Orange rolls away from the Black Arrow. He kept rolling away from him. And then at one point, Orange actually smiled at Pac. And it was at that point that Orange finally turned on the jets. He hits a tope suicida, a nice looking crossbody, and then a satellite DDT for a 2 count. Pac hits a lariat, but then Orange comes back with a nice looking Superman punch. Hits the stun dog millionaire, basically where Pac tries to go for suplex, but then Orange transitions it into a stunner. He hits an avalanche satellite DDT. He goes up to the top rope again and hits a diving DDT, which looked really nice. And then he hits an air raid crash and gets a 2 count. And at this point, the crowd he has the crowd in the palm of his hand at this point. But then something weird happened. The Lucha Brothers come out and start fighting with the Best Friends, which at first I was like, what the hell's going on here? Of course, it made a lot more sense on the Wednesday episode of Dynamite in Denver, because it happened again during another Pac match. So, and it actually made more sense there. But we'll get to that when we get to it. But Pac manages to lock the Brutalizer in on Orange and gets the submission victory. Nice little match right here. For a match that had next to no build, of course these two have had meetings in the past, but I mean this didn't really have a whole hell of a lot of build to it leading into Revolution. But this was still a very nice match, and the crowd was definitely into it. I gave it 3.75 stars out of 5. And then we have our main event, the AEW World Championship match between Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley. Highlights of this match. Both start coming out swinging because, of course, this rivalry has reached a fever pitch. Mox with a lariat to the outside. Both start fighting into the crowd because, of course, they are. Jericho takes the camera and flips off Moxley. And then he throws a guardrail at Moxley, which is pretty funny. But Moxley comes back with a double axe handle. Moxley bites Y2J's stitches that are on his face from where he headbutted him. Y2J sends Moxley into the post, which busts him open. Y2J hits a powerbomb onto the table and the ring bell that was on there. That had to hurt. Y2J hits a flying forearm drop. And then he grabs the ring bell and rings and he says, "I declare myself the winner," which that's not the way it works. Then he hits a catapult guillotine. Santana attacks Mox on the outside. Jericho sends Mox into the stairs and he hits a suplex, snake eyes, and a running drop kick for a 2 count. And then he hits a lariat in the corner. Moxley fights back with a front suplex after Jericho tries to do a superplex. Moxley hits a flying lariat. Hits some sledgehammer lariats and a mudhole stomp. Jericho tries for the lion tamer, but Moxley counters it into a heel hook. Moxley with a blindside tope suicida and then a running knee strike for a 2 count. Ortiz hits Moxley with the mad ball, and Jericho hits a lion salt, only gets a 2 count. So Jericho hits a lariat, goes for the code breaker, but Moxley tries to counter into the paradigm shift. But Jericho counters out of that, but then Moxley counters into his own version of the Lion Tamer. And then Jericho hits a code breaker after Hager's interference, because of course he does, and gets a 2 count only. Jericho finally locks in the Lion Tamer, but Moxley gets to the rope. Moxley hits a back suplex. He hits a running lariat, but then Hager punches Moxley through the rope. Aubrey sees it and ejects the inner circle, but then Guevara comes out from the crowd and hits Moxley with the belt. Jericho covers him, but Moxley kicks out at 2. And at this point, the crowd's just going nuts at this point. Both start going toe-to-toe. Y2J gouges Moxley good eye, or his good eye, because Moxley's still wearing the eye patch. Y2J hits a middle rope drop kick. Sets up for the Judas effect, but Moxley ducks under it and hits the paradigm shift. And then Moxley takes off the eye patch and shows that he can see. And the crowd just goes absolutely nuts. And then the story that they were telling here is that Jericho was just so surprised by the fact that Moxley can see with both eyes. They just walks right into Moxley, who hits him with a boot and then hits the Death Rider and gets the 3 count and the victory. And your new AEW World Champion is Jon Moxley. And then he cuts a very impassioned promo afterwards. And of course, one of the things that was funny was that they started his music in a little bit early before he was done. He was like, "Hey, what the fuck?" That made me laugh. But he basically was saying that, this belt doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the fans. The fans are the reason why AEW exists, Which, that's pretty cool of Mox to say that. But, this was a very, very good pay-per-view, well worth the $50. And this match in particular, before I forget, I gave it 4 stars out of 5. But this pay-per-view was fucking awesome. Like I said, well worth the $50. My final rating for AEW Revolution, it'll get a 9 out of 10. That'll be my final rating. And it'll be interesting to see what the build for Double or Nothing 2 will show us in the next couple months. But what a way to cap off an absolutely amazing month of February for All Elite Wrestling. Just absolutely insane month of February. Lots of great shit. I think every single show I rated an 8 or above in February. Absolutely insane. But that's going to do it for my review of All Elite Wrestling's Revolution. The next review will be AEW Dynamite in Denver. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye. You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.